Shabbat Shalom. Just this last Wednesday in our Magal, our Might and Alliance for Growth and Learning Hebrew School, we had an extremely lively debate. And I'd like to see how well, those of you who weren't there would deal with the topic at hand. And that topic is, of course, the city is under siege. And as the city is under siege, the invaders outside have demanded that you send one person out. If you do, they will spare the city, and if you don't, you and everyone else in that city are going to be destroyed. So the question is, what is the moral thing to do? Do you grab somebody and chuck them over the wall and say, here you go, and now the city is spared, saving thousands of lives perhaps? Or do you say, we are in no position to pick one of us to die? We would rather you do the dirty work yourself. What do you think? What's that? You absolutely raised your hand. Yes.
I think that as the leader, you should offer yourself.
So you could volunteer yourself.
You gotta save your people, and if it's one person that needs it, why let a bunch of people put in misery when you can stop it all?
All right, so if you are the leader, contrary to Mel Brooks, it's not good to be the king, because it falls upon your shoulders to do the noble sacrifice, to offer yourself up in order that everyone else will live. Excellent idea. For the moment, though, imagine that nobody is willing to volunteer. Just for the moment, nobody's willing to say, I volunteer as tribute, and instead, it's going to have to be some kind of selection process if anyone's going, and that person is going to be dragging their heels as you drag them through the gates. Yes?
Okay, so if we do the scenario of no one wants to volunteer, then just basically what you said. Either show yourself, take a poll, send just someone, pick that random, or let everyone fall.
That's not what I
Make
said.
like a
It is true that your proposition is not a restatement of hers. It is a different idea. I will absolutely confirm that. We were working over the last few weeks about the proper mechanics of a good discussion, and one of them is being sure that you are faithfully restating another person's position, and that was not a faithful reproduction. It's a good different position, however, and the idea would be all those in favor of sending Frank, raise your hand. And now Frank is going out the door. As, of course, everybody would raise their hand, because if we're not going to vote for Frank, the next round it could be voting for me. So, indeed, one solution to this would be to have some kind of poll, maybe anonymous, maybe not, some way of hierarchically deciding which person is the most desirable to be gotten rid of. There are many different solutions to this, but none of those solutions are the classic Jewish solution. The classic Jewish solution says that if they do not name anyone, if they do not give any stipulations, they're just asking for one of us, we don't get to pick. We cannot force anyone to go out and be murdered on our behalf. That all of us do not have the authority to make one of us the scapegoat. Now, that's very disappointing to the utilitarians out there. Well, I should say the superficial utilitarians. Real utilitarianism is much more complex. But many people believe that, oh, well, if it's the greatest good for the greatest number, then clearly we just have to bite the bullet and pick someone and let them go, make it as fair as possible, but don't be stupid. Why in the world would we want all of us to be hurt rather than one of us? We have to go on. We have to exist. We have to live. After all, that's the whole point, isn't it? Well, to that, Judaism gives you an alternative scenario, one that perhaps will heighten the kind of situation that this is actually entailing, because sometimes in these hypotheticals, we can obscure the real issue through the storytelling. So let's make a much simpler story. You and Frank is always my victim, you and Frank, and I apologize to any Franks that are here tonight, you and Frank are in a lifeboat. And that lifeboat is drifting in the middle of the ocean. Now, you're reasonably sure, being the wonderful sailor that you are, that if there's only one of you in that boat, the supplies will probably be enough to sustain you to get into the shipping lanes and find help. If there are two of you in that boat, you don't have a chance. There is no way that you will have enough food, water, or other provisions to make it, both of you, into a position where there's a chance for rescue. Same scenario, just makes it a little bit more blunt. Do you take the oar and whack Frank in the head? Or do you think the only noble course is to step off the edge of the boat and drown yourself and allow Frank to have all the provisions? Most, what? Or do you do what to both? If neither of us can make it, then we might as well both just die now. Definitely not the Jewish answer. But Judaism also says you neither have an obligation to give up your provisions, nor do you have the right to take Frank's. That you are not allowed to say, my blood is redder than his, and therefore I deserve to live more than he deserves to live. And I will do whatever I believe is necessary to preserve me at the expense of him. And likewise, you're not obligated, because his blood is not redder than yours, to selflessly lay down your life in order that he preserve. Because there is an inherent flaw in the casual utilitarianism that talks about the greatest good for the greatest number, but misses the point that Judaism tries to tell us, that indeed the Torah from the very first page tries to tell us, which is you cannot save humanity. All you can save are humans. We cannot think just in the collective, that this will be good for society, that this will be good for the country, this will be good for the world, and be willing to overlook the harm it does to Frank. Because when we do that, we misunderstand the purpose of creation, which is not to win some game where Frank and Bob and Tom are tokens that are collected and spent in order to reach some goal that will only accrue to humanity, whatever that means. That they are not expendable. They are, in fact, the point of creation in its first instance. That God did not call humanity into existence, God called Adam, called a human into existence. And our journey through this life is not about what we cumulatively grow, but what we individually will experience. The journey of that individual soul, because humanity itself has no soul. Only the individual humans that comprise humanity have a soul. For humanity to flourish, but the individual human soul to die, is not a victory. And it is not why God called us into being. God called us into being in order to cherish that soul, to love that individual, ourselves and each other. And yes, collectively we can do amazing and beautiful things which benefit all of us together. But to do so at the callous expenditure of other people as though they are somehow made noble by laying down their life, willingly or unwillingly, for the benefit of all, is to forget the purpose of all. Judaism doesn't say, hand them over, toss them over the side, do what you have to preserve you, or 5 of you, or 10 of you at the expense of the one. Because when we begin to do those calculations, we find that we can justify any degree of immorality, any degree of monstrosity. Instead, we must always ask, is this right for him? Is this right for her? Not just is this right for some nebulous ideal. It's shocking because we like to think of those nebulous ideas. It's easier. It's nice to drink in the rarefied air of dreaming of helping humanity. But time and time again we have seen those who wish to preserve humanity at the expense of humans end up committing grave crimes against individual lives again and again. So as we consider our place in this world, as we consider our choices individually, as we consider the choices and the well-being of other individuals around us, do not slip into the temptation of thinking of them as groups, thinking of them as bundles, thinking of them as mere tokens for the good of a greater purpose. Each life is the greater purpose. For each and every one of them and us, this world was made. And none of us have the right to deprive them of their place, their time in this world, simply out of convenience, necessity, or unfortunate circumstance. Guide your actions by holding true to that idea. The human, the Adam, is what God cherishes. It is what we must look for as well. Shabbat Shalom.